Trapped in the Air, September 11th, 2018, New York. Air India Flight 101 is attempting to land at John F. Kennedy International Airport for the second time, high above the clouds. The situation is dire. The airplane is critically short on fuel after a demanding 14-hour flight, and several crucial instruments have failed. The Instrument Landing System, ILS, a crucial instrument for a safe landing in bad weather, has also been lost by the pilots. The plane is encircled by dense clouds, making visibility nearly impossible, and it is pouring rain outside. In the following several minutes, the pilot's competence and choices will determine the fate of the 357 passengers on board. Would they be able to stop another September 11 aviation disaster in New York? Let's discover Air's story of Air India Flight 101. The adventure begins at Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi. It was a warm fall evening. 15 staff members and 342 passengers were getting ready for the 14-hour journey to New York. Before eventually entering US airspace, passengers will travel via Pakistan, Russia, Greenland, and Canada on this 12,000-kilometer Air India flagship route. A Boeing 777-300ER extended range with two GE90-150B engines was the aircraft used for this trip. This 9-year-old aircraft, which was intended for long-haul flights, was delivered to Air India in 2009. The 777 normally only needs 2 pilots, but because of its length, this flight had a 4-pilot crew: Captain Vikas, Captain Shashant Singh, 49-year-old Captain Rustam Paya, who has 3,500 hours of 777 experience, Captain D.S. Butty, too. All 4 of them had never flown together before. Engineers stated that the Auxiliary Power Unit, APU, was not working during the pre-flight briefing. Although it provides power when the primary engines are not running, the APU is not necessary for safe flight operations. The crew decided to move forward, considering the problem to be non-critical. Captain Paya made a wise decision that would later prove critical when he requested an extra 800 kilograms of gasoline in anticipation of potential inclement weather in New York. Initial indications of problem. The flight was delayed by 1 hour and took off at 3 local time. The first 40 minutes of the trip, when it was cruising over Pakistan, were unremarkable. The pilot's screens displayed the warning, single-source radio altimeter. An essential tool for determining an aircraft's altitude above the ground is the radio altimeter, which employs radar signals. 3 of these altimeters are used for redundancy in modern airplanes, such as the Boeing 777. Only 1 altimeter was active, according to the notice, while 2 others had failed. Since barometric altimeters, which depend on air pressure, are employed at higher altitudes, this wasn't a big issue during the cruise. But when it comes to landing, where accuracy is crucial, radio altimeters are essential. The crew was now uncertain after 2 failures if the altimeter that remained was trustworthy. A series of errors. Another warning light came on as the plane passed over the Atlantic Ocean 10 hours later, indicating that the Traffic Collision Avoidance System, TCAS, had malfunctioned. By identifying neighboring aircraft and assisting pilots in avoiding crashes, TCAS serves as a virtual traffic officer. Although it is not essential when cruising, it becomes essential when landing in crowded airspace, such as New York. The pilots were now very worried. The TCAS was down, the radio altimeters had broken after takeoff, and the APU had failed before departure. The crew suspected an underlying system fault, even though these problems appeared to be unrelated. With little choices, they continued their journey to New York. Decline toward anarchy. The weather was bleak as the plane got closer to JFK, cloud ceilings as low as 200 feet, drizzle, and cloudy sky. The pilots tried to steer toward runway 04R using the ILS, but the system was unable to lock onto the signal. The crew was now forced to use a less accurate LNAV-NAV approach, which relies on GPS and requires the pilots to visually detect the runway before landing because the ILS was no longer functional. To exacerbate the situation, a bogus warning bell signaled that the landing gear was not fully deployed as they extended it. The problem was promptly fixed, although it increased the crew's already heavy burden. The pilots started a go-around, climbing back after failing to stabilize the aircraft for landing, up to 2,000 feet. They reported their instrument problems to Air Traffic Control, ATC,
and asked for more holding vectors so they could troubleshoot. Running low on fuel. The situation was rapidly becoming worse. The cloud ceiling at JFK stayed at 200 feet, which was too low for their imprecise method. Stewart and Newark, two nearby options, also had ceilings under 200 feet. Fuel supplies were running low, therefore the crew could not afford to divert to airports further away. Though it wouldn't last long, the extra 800 kilograms that had been loaded in Delhi was suddenly prov. The last attempt, ATC told the crew that Newark's ceiling had improved to 400 feet, leaving them with limited alternatives. The pilots chose to try one last time, but still fell short of their desired minimum of 600 feet. The cockpit was tense as they swooped through heavy clouds. They broke through the clouds at 400 feet, but they were too high and crooked. By expertly adjusting the approach, Captain Paya brought the aircraft into line with the center line of the runway. Shortly after, the Boeing 77 safely landed on runway 04R in Newark after 15 hours in the Airing Crucial. A tight escape. The crew refused to accept help from the emergency vehicles that were waiting for the aircraft. A thunderstorm swept over the airport 10 minutes after the plane taxied to the gate. A safe landing would not have been possible if they had even 5 minutes to postpone their approach. Although the